All right, it's time for good, bad, ugly. I tell you what, man, can you talk about the good of college football without talking about John Mateer? You want to talk about changing the perception of your program in a must-win year for Brent Venables. This is the value of the transfer portal. We've seen this time and time again. Saw it a couple years ago with Oregon and Bo Nix. Saw it a few years ago with Jaden Daniels and LSU. Sam Leavitt in Arizona State. The list is long. Being able to get a transcendent talent like a guy like John Mateer for a program that's still trying to navigate into a new conference in the SEC. It's like quick match. And man, he was fun against Michigan in that Wink Martindale defense. Oklahoma ranked number 18 in the country going into that game. Michigan ranked number 15. Sooners knock them off 24-13. And John Mateer, 21-34, one touchdown, one INT, 270 yards, 74 yards rushing, the transfer from Washington State. There are a lot of expectations going into the season for Mateer. The hype really kind of started to build over the summer. We talked about him a lot during the portal season. And this is a guy that's just so dynamic with what he can do with his arm and what he can do with his legs. And I heard Todd McShay kind of breaking him down a little bit earlier today, saying that he reminded him a little bit of Baker Mayfield as a passer and a little bit of Kyler Murray as a runner. So if you didn't watch this game on Saturday night, primetime on ABC, you're probably thinking to yourself, wow, that sounds like a pretty good combination. And he's a fun guy to watch. He's a little bit of a cowboy, I would say. And I think what's interesting about him is not only the conversation that surrounds him from a collegiate standpoint and how high does he elevate Oklahoma's ceiling, but really the chatter that will pick up, and I want to get ahead of this, not narrative, but just this conversation, is how do teams view him as a pro prospect? And you think about John Mateer, you think about his stature, 6'1", 225 pounds, quick twitch, explosive in terms of his ability as a runner, his short area quickness, his change of direction, really just his patience, his feel, and his one-cut plant and drive and the acceleration. Pretty special. And then as a passer, explosive arm. I mean, we saw it a couple times last night. Can get the ball out off platform, very comfortable on the run, obviously can improvise. But the throw that he made to Isaiah Petagna on the run, had to avoid pressure, broke out of the pocket. That was special. And you saw a little bit of the other side as well. You saw the interception, sailed high, trying to hit a receiver, intermediate, deep. Another one should have been picked. Oklahoma receiver made a heck of a play, knocked that ball to the ground. But he's got stuff that you can't teach. Like we talked about, like how does Oklahoma offensively specifically get their swag back under Brent Venables, where you had to go back to the Lincoln Riley days and you had to look at guys like Caleb Williams, Spencer Rattler, Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield. The list goes on and on. Really, really special list of quarterbacks that have come through Norman. And this guy steps into the spotlight against Michigan. Third ever time Oklahoma's ever played Michigan. With all the weight and the expectations, and he delivered. And it just looked like another day at the ballpark for him. And that's a big development because Oklahoma, they got a lot of talent defensively as well. Brent Venables said it at halftime. He loved the way they were knocking paint off helmets. That was a physical team. and they got some pieces defensively. But offensively, we knew what Mateer was capable of. They're still trying to figure out their running game. Who's going to be the guy? Is it going to be Javonte Barnes? Is it going to be Jay Knott, who they brought over from Cal? Can they get Taylor Tatum going a little bit? They pieced it together in the receiving core. Deion Burks, explosive. Nice budding relationship between him and his quarterback taking place. So they got some pieces. But Oklahoma all of a sudden feels like a factor. How much of a factor? I don't know. But if you're a team that has to play Oklahoma, that's not a game that I don't think anybody's particularly excited for as an opponent. And you look at OU's schedule, it sets up nice, man. You have Temple on the road. You have a top 25 Auburn team at home. Then you have Kent State before the Red River rivalry on October 11th. And then that second half of that schedule is brutal. At South Carolina, Ole Miss at home, at Tennessee, at Alabama, Missouri, LSU at home. So just as a football fan, what's going to be really fun here in the next couple weeks, really starting with Auburn, you're going to see Mateer really get tested with some athletic defenses. And really Texas, October 11th is like, that's the matchup that I'm excited about. And I think every NFL scout from a Mateer standpoint is looking at that game. So Oklahoma, they got the right guy leading them. John Mateer, he's a stud. In terms of the NFL ceiling, every time I think somebody's going to run away with this race, I watch another week of football, and it really kind of throws some cold water on who I think could be QB1 in the NFL draft. Whether it's Garrett Nussmeier, whether it's Lenoris Sellers, whether it's Drew Aller, I'm not going to mention Cade Klubnik in that conversation. And then you just have this guy hanging around, going to play so many big games. And for him as a prospect, great. I mean, you're going to see him good on good for the rest of the year after that Texas game. So Oklahoma, certified dude, and John Mateer, I would give him the reward, but I think everybody was talking about him already. Coach? Let's talk some Bryce Underwood. Bryce Underwood, the number one recruit 2025 on the other side for Michigan. We saw what he could do week 1 against New Mexico. Nice debut. And if you want to see some things just in terms of the physical attributes of why he was ranked the number 1 player in the country, go watch that New Mexico game. Now, this game, a little bit different for Bryce Underwood. Going up against, obviously, one of the better defensive coordinators in the country, Brent Venables, a guy that can give you a lot of different looks, very talented, athletic, fast defense. And Michigan really wanted to hang their hat on the run. And in the first half, I thought, okay, they didn't really let him cut it loose. And then you saw the uneven play from the quarterback position in the second half that said, all right, maybe I understand it a little bit. That being said, Bryce Underwood is going to continue to progress week in and week out, and he seems very comfortable on the move. And we're only 2 weeks into this relationship together, me as a podcast host, you as a listener. But I continue to say this about quarterbacks that have the ability to run, especially young ones. I'd like to see Michigan, Sharon Moore, Chip Lindsey kind of lean on that a little bit more. And we saw that more as a senior at Belleville for Bryce Underwood than we did in previous years. And I think it just takes a little bit of pressure off of him. It takes a little pressure off your run game and Justice Haynes and Jordan Marshall. And the arm is still getting there. Can make every throw on the field, but in terms of seeing it, it's what you would expect a quarterback of his age in that environment. The other thing, like, it didn't seem too big. You saw a heated interaction between him and Justice Haynes on the sideline. Like, I think people had mixed opinions on that. I like it. I don't know the context of it, but I don't have an issue with it. He's competitive. He wants to win. Big-time environment in a big-time game for his school that he's representing on the road in the SEC. So I think if you're a Michigan fan, you're coming out of this game for Bryce Underwood, there's a lot there that you saw that he can take as a foundational building block and learn from and grow. The other part about this is the point that I want to make. If you're Michigan in this situation, or if you're a team that's going to heavily invest in the quarterback position out of high school, I see it pretty similar to the way that I see the philosophy of taking a running back in the first round of the NFL draft. And I've heard a lot of people in personnel circles really talk about that, this topic specifically. It only makes sense if you feel like you have a team that can compete for a national championship within that window of when you have that player. So for Michigan, it's 3 to 4 years. But this is one of those years. And Michigan, defensively, is good enough to compete for a national championship. Offensively, yet to be determined. Obviously not there right now. But what do you have around this guy? Especially at the receiver position. Samaj Morgan, Donovan McCulley. You know, Michigan's going to be a tough team. But in terms of getting back to that bar year in and year out, that's a different type of game that's played with the best in the business. Go look at Ohio State. Go look at Oregon. I typically say go look at Georgia. We'll talk about that later. But go look at those two teams specifically and how they reload every year. And I think Michigan is a super high floor team. But how do you go from competing for a national championship once every couple years to we're in the mix every year? Bryce Underwood, really, really bright future. Excited for him. So there you have it. The good. John Mateer, Oklahoma, a team to be feared. The schedule sets up nice. Like I said, you're on the road at Temple. You have Auburn at home. You have Kent State, and then you have Texas. So a real opportunity for Oklahoma to be 5-0 with a showdown with Arch Manning. All right, guys, just a reminder, you are locked in to Coop's Corner. You can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/Coops Petag, COOPSPETAG. You can also find me on every social imaginable, I think, outside of Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. What others are there? X, at Cooper Petagna. And I want to get the interactive thing going. If you have a question, if you have a comment, if you have feedback, positive or negative, give it to me. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you didn't like. I mean, I'm trying to make this show the best it could possibly be for your listening and viewer experience. And I said it last week. We're going to zoom out. We're going to go 30,000 feet, and then we're going to zoom in and talk about the player stuff and the stuff that you find interesting for your school, your program going into a matchup week in and week out.